to give a little bit about my background. I come to this, to radical feminism through the feminist spirituality movement. Feminist spirituality movement, for those of you who are unfamiliar with that history, we're talking about the reclamation of goddess spirituality that did not come through the revival of witchcraft that came from Great Britain with Gerald Gardner. That's also based on a duality of male and female, goddess, god, etc. It came out of radical feminist activism, where women began to, especially in the late 60s, early 70s, began to literally unearth the goddess from archaeology, the work of Maria Gimbutas, who provided a backbone, and she was vilified and criticized for many years. Now she's been vindicated, just in the last year actually, for her idea that before there was a patriarchal father god religion, that there was around the globe basically the idea of a female-centered matrilocal, matrifocal cultures where female was revered. But it wasn't a god and drag concept, where it was just where the idea of it being a reversal of what we understand as patriarchy and patriarchal religion, but rather according to the archaeological record, there were no fortifications. It seemed like there was more egalitarian societies, and women were involved in all aspects of culture, where women were not then secondary to men. So this was an inspiration to many feminists at that time, and of course in the early years, the idea of any kind of religion or spirituality, because of the influence of Marxism, etc. Religion being the opium of the people. No one, especially early feminism, didn't want anything to do with anything that was religious or spiritual, no matter what. So there was kind of two tracks going on at that time, especially in the early 70s, and then things started to change around that. Basically the realization that religion has always been political and has always informed and supported whatever the dominant culture is doing. And so feminist spirituality was a counter to that, and it served as a place for women to address their spirituality, but from a female-centered place. So I was a part of that what became the goddess movement, and it's been a really interesting ride. So those of us, especially in those early years, we were involved with creating the rape crisis centers and the battered women's shelters and all the other things that were also happening along. And we were also, dancing under the moon. We were kind of like doing all the various things that we wanted to do. But it had to do with spiritual liberation for us as well, from a God the Father concept. And that was very healing for many of us who fled any kind of organized religion and spirituality. So that's a little bit about my background, because I have been, I am a priestess, I am
That's the same angle.
and so my work has been from the beginning in the Dianic tradition, which is an exclusively female and goddess-centered focus. We do not have the duality of the goddess and the god that other pagan traditions have, and so we were always attacked from the beginning, because how can you have balance when the god, when the guy's not there, or how you don't have any men in your circles, and therefore you must hate them. I've been involved with this battle in that front for so long that when the transgender issue came into the equation, it was just another face of the same thing. It was in a continuum of female erasure and silencing that has been going on for thousands of years. That is where I come from, and how, when I went to do the anthology on female erasure, I really wanted to stress that. This is nothing new. This is just the latest of how it's showing up. Okay? So, didn't expect it to get quite this bad. But then I also am remembering that, and this is really a quote from Amanda Foreman, Dr. Amanda Foreman, who did The Ascent of Woman, a wonderful 4-part series you can look at on Netflix. It's basically how women's freedoms, women's liberation has never ever traveled in a straight line. It's always been circuitous. If you look at, if you study what's happened to us globally, where women's, if you could talk about ancient Sumer and, where women were in charge of everything, and then what happened, 1,000 years later, and it's the opposite. So it gives me hope in a way that right now, while we are in this place of, wow, how could our advancements in women's liberation have come to this? We have to also remember, it's not going to stay the same. It's going to go back, it's going to change again. And it's that understanding from history, that allows me to be optimistic. And so I'm a player, because I have a choice. I have a choice about how I'm going to stand in this. And we're all here for that same reason, because we care about what happens to women and children, and we are here because we know that to go to sleep is not an option. So what happened is that over the years, in terms of my own activism, the issue of transgender into women's spiritual spaces, it came basically crashing into my door, because I am legally protected. Under religion, I have a temple. It's national, Temple of Diana, and we get to decide what a woman is. It's called that. This is about the separation of church and state that exists, and so we have to work with what we have. That's where I come from, and what we have is no one can tell me or challenge me on what a woman is in my temple. So we've been providing sanctuary for women and girls for decades, because we've been around a long time. I am also, I have ways of being able to offer shelter under the auspices. And I say it's not just me. I'm just saying because I'm a co-founder of that organization. To offer sanctuary to other spiritual groups who need that protection under religion. I just say if someone wants to attack me, well then you have to go through the Catholic Church first. Go through the Catholic Church first before you come to me, right? So, anyway, so the Female Erasure Anthology, over the years, of course, I've been through a lot of experiences that many of you have already described about being, not hireable. I haven't been hireable in years, and it's just, fired or, oh my gosh. So anyway, I don't need to go through that, but it's just that, when that happens, it is horrible. It is a horrible, horrible thing, because I haven't changed. I facilitate and I teach ritual making for female rites of passage. Sounds really kind of nice and empowering and sweet in a way, but it's apparently this huge threat to address the female body. And in our tradition, the female body is the foundation for our spiritual tradition. And so the transgender issue is obviously, you can't just say you're a woman, you can't, this is about embodiment. And not only do we address the ways that we are oppressed as a class, and because our rituals are not just fluffy, okay? We are not. We are hard. We are absolutely about celebrating our sacred rage at injustice and at patriarchy, and we call for, may patriarchy fall for the good of all in almost every ritual that we do. So this is not just about a feel-good moment. It is about activism, and that's where our spirituality feeds the activism. So I was even before 2015, I gave a keynote address at the National Women's Music Festival, and it was called Our Holy Book Has Always Been Our Female Flesh and Blood. And I had copies of the talk. I was terrified. I was terrified to be, going to a festival because I've been a part of the Michigan Women's Music Festival for 30 out of the 40 years. And I didn't know what was going to happen. I thought, they were going to throw tomatoes, I didn't know what was going to happen. But I was invited, and they told me, we want you to do this keynote for the spirituality track, and you can talk about anything you want. Really? Okay, and that's when I decided to go for it. And I decided I had seen President Obama deliver the eulogy for Reverend Pinckney after the horrific killings at that church, and the way he delivered that eulogy in honor of his friend. And I thought, I'm going to do that. I'm going to holy roll on this one. and so I did. And the room was packed. It was, and I just, it's one of those moments where you either are going to, put your vote, the hokey pokey, put your whole self in, So, and by the time I was done, and first of all, no one threw tomatoes, or yelled at me, or called me names, and at the end, it was an intense experience because it was an hour and a half. And when I was done, I practically fell over, and women were, it was, I don't know, there were several hundred women there, and it was, women were sobbing, and they needed to hear someone say it. They just needed to hear someone saying the things that were important to them. And then that's when that was like, I knew at that moment that I need to do something bigger to make women's voices heard, because women are so afraid to say these things, even out loud. And I will not be bullied. And I am a warrior, and I'm an Amazon. I will not take this shit lying down. And that's my responsibility as a priestess of women's mysteries. I am not bound down to this crap. I've never done it, and I never will. So I felt emboldened by that. So I began, but I didn't want it to be just my voice. It can't be just our voice. And this is why this became a tome. I couldn't say no. I was looking for it. It just kept growing. And I had no idea how big this was going to be until it actually arrived. And I was like, oh, you're kidding. And I priced it really accessible, for how big it was, and anyway, but finding women who would be willing to be a part of it was also the challenge. And it's been 1.5 years since it was out, and I know that there'd be more now. I'm not writing another one. I'm never doing this again. And I was desperate to find women who would be willing to be public. And there are women in here, of course, who chose not to be. And that was fine. I didn't care. I wanted to make many, many points, and I wanted it said by someone. And so I wanted the writing styles to be different. I wanted it to not just be academic. I wanted it to be just like, this is my experience, and I fucking hate it. So, that's why there are 48 contributors to this book. And anyway, so, and then it was a fundraiser, of course, to fundraise, and I was able to fundraise all the money to do it. And then I got to get these done up for, female sovereign space, these door knockers, do not disturb. And everyone got one of those. So the book has, since that time, the book has been utilized, Women at 4 book clubs, because the whole point of this was to get women to talk about these issues. That's was the point. To have it serve as a catalyst for discussing the things that I don't even know where to begin to talk about this. you know, and I don't know how to talk about it with my friends. And so the book has been, because I hear from, I don't even know where all it's gone, right? I mean, I don't know.
It's gone around the world.
It's gone around the world.
I can tell you that.
I bought
Okay.
3.
Huh?
I bought 3. I've given some.
Thank you. And so, and now we just did an ebook, not just the Kindle, which is proprietary, but also we just did an ebook. It's out now on Smashwords because it was been pirated. Someone else was selling it online as an ebook, and it wasn't us. So now it's out on an ebook. But anyway, but it was about stimulating conversation and or helping inspire those communications around gender identity politics, and also to help suggest to women how we might initiate actual dialogue, respectful dialogue. I am really a proponent, anyone who knows me knows, that I will not become them. I will not talk to people in horrible ways. I will not go to, the whole point of this is that we have to do better than them. And screaming people down is not my style. It is not my way. I want us to actually communicate and educate one another. That was basically how I responded. I'm not normally a book publisher. I mean, I have a book. It's on female ritual making from a personal ritual making from a completely goddess and female-centered way. And that's really my work. And also the other part of what I do is I'm a musician, singer. I've been one of the pioneering musicians in the goddess spirituality movement. I didn't bring in my music because I'm not here for that. But it's, as a vocational priestess, when you're not hired places, or it's been interesting and rough. So, the door has been shut to us also all over around trying to get the book into magazines, reviewed. I mean, I have sent this book, I've spent so much money trying to get the book into places so that someone will simply even talk about it. And it's the left, this is we've been talking about all week. And so I wanted to read just something that I wrote down about this about transgender ideology. Transgender ideology is about sex stereotypes and enforcing the binary. Since transgenderism is about changing the sexed body to gender confirmation and seeking to legislate this confirmation, it completely bypasses the criticism and politics of gender itself. If transgenderism was truly about changing the binary, it would not seek to change the body, but change how gender stereotypes are enforced in the dominant culture and religions. So one of the things that we know is happening, and Gail Dines talked about it a lot in her talk yesterday, is that we are dealing with how language is used to enforce the frame of transgenderism. This, as a witch, I know that words have power. This is a concept that's been around for a very, very long time. And so our learning how to address the issues that we're dealing with in our language and not going into the frame of the transgender language has been the biggest challenge I see around how to change this and have the dialogue come around in a different way. I'm gonna, in a minute, end and let Karen talk, but okay, the other thing that we're doing, I want to mention the spaces first. One of the things that we began doing last year, because I didn't know how the book was going to be received at the women's festivals. So we began kind of like slowly kind of bringing out the book, and I was emboldened again by the response to the book. So what we started doing last summer, and we are doing it again this summer, and I'm mentioning this because some of you may be going to these festivals, and I want you to know. Well, we're doing a talk on female erasure at the National Women's Music Festival in Madison, Wisconsin. At the Michigan Family Reunion, which is a women-only festival. We are having a separate tent that we are in the vending area. That's not to sell anything, it's to have radical feminist, intergenerational radical feminist discussions. I set it up though like a little temple, you know, with an altar in it and all these Max Dashu posters with, you know, vulva pots and breastplates and stuff like that. And then it's just chairs. So women can come in and have discussions and write on a whiteboard, I want to talk about this. And we're doing this also at the Ohio Lesbian Festival, which is a trans-inclusive festival. By the way, they did hire me to also perform there. And I'm mentioning that because some of you know I was deplatformed from a festival in Kansas, a goddess festival in Kansas, fired me 2 weeks ago. But this festival that is trans-inclusive hired me knowing what had happened. And I want to mention that because we don't have to try to hurt each other if we disagree. We don't have to agree, we don't have to like each other, but you don't get to hurt each other. Like, I mean, when I hurt, I'm talking about physically, economically, all those things. Okay? So that festival happened to model a different response. So I get to go, and they know who I am. Of course they do. So I just want to say, in terms of looking for other models, you can go and try to fire somebody. I don't like, you know, you're a TERF, you're out, or let's bring all the sisters in. So we are also having a booth to talk about radical feminism at the Ohio Lesbian Festival. So if you are there,
Yes.
please do come. And whatever you want to talk about, you can. But it's all circling around these issues, the multitude of issues that are about the anthology. How did I do?
Great.
Okay. I want to say something about Karen Cayer, who's about to talk. Karen is I'm not an internet person. Karen is an internet person. She does all of the website stuff for Female Erasure, and I'm so thankful to Karen because the outreach and stuff that the book has been able to do wouldn't happen if it was up to me because I don't know how to do that shit. We all have our skills. So I'm going to turn this over to Karen and to talk about the other parts of this.
I understand also. So, Ruth's given you a little bit of background about her, a little bit of background about me. In 1969, I was in the 3rd grade, and I learned about petitions. And I learned the power of petitions. And I petitioned the Catholic Church, the teachers, the nuns, so that we could have the boys' playground on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So that we could play basketball, use the slide, play baseball. And the boys had the swings and the thing that went around in the circle thing on Tuesdays and Thursdays. I also managed we weren't allowed to wear jeans, but within a couple of weeks we were all wearing jeans on Tuesday and Thursday. So from that point that I've always been active in women's issues, whether it's been, I worked in Montreal back in the 90s helping start a program for runaways and young prostitutes, still going that project. I have a lot of experience in substance abuse, and then I went into more business kind of stuff and nonprofits. I help organize stuff. I'm a techie geek, but I'm not really highly, like I'm not going to tell you that I know all the back end of stuff, but I do know how to find people to do that, to work together. So that's kind of what I kind of try and manage also. As part of the Female Erasure project, being in the back end, I do a lot of trying to protect Ruth, because obviously everybody thinks,
I don't want to hear it.
Everybody thinks female erasure is her, and what I'm trying to do is make female erasure all of us. So we have these to pass out actually that tell about our resources.
It's
that
very
we have.
small.
It's very small print.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, the next ones will be larger. But the idea being that you know where to find us. One of the things that we do, so we have a public Facebook group, but we also have a private secret Facebook group for female erasure. So if anybody wanted to be part of that group, you can hit me up, text me, absolutely friend me, because I'm out. I kind of like follow everybody that's doing different things, and then I help people hook up stuff also. If you're working and you don't know each other, I kind of like making, hey, she's doing that also, So use me for that kind of like sharing information And if you have something coming out, I'll absolutely get that out. The biggest part that Ruth was talking about is that our struggle has been trying to get this book into the academic settings. She wrote it with the structure of having questions, and most of these chapters are built on an education format so that you can actually read the chapter and then have a discussion on it, which some of the groups, there's actually some here in Chicago we've heard of, that are meeting secretly and going through this book. It is a tome, so don't feel like you have to read the whole thing, but if you read a chapter here and there, you get a little bit more information also. Ruth also mentioned that it's in ebook now. We have it on Kindle also. And we're absolutely trying to go and have it chained in different languages. We have a couple of different projects in Europe, one in Germany, a German or another one that is, I forget now, I don't remember. So anyway, so those are some of the things. One thing I do want to mention that if any of you can help me with right off the bat, there are two things that I need help with. YouTube changed their policy. It used to have a female erasure channel, and I guess they changed like everything else on the net, so that we were less than 40 people that had said, they liked it or whatever, they're following it, so they dumped us off our channel. I would really like to get our channel back up. So if you all could go to the YouTube and just kind of like add to our numbers, by the time I get that, then we can have another channel up.
You mean like subscribe?
Subscribe to the channel, yeah, exactly.
So you tell the channels now, I can go and I can.
It's still there, but it's not listed as a channel. It's female erasure, and you'll see some of the videos that we have, and it's just, they've separated all out. I don't know, I'd have to go back in there and fix it, but. So the other part that we talked about, so we need help trying to get in the libraries. We needed to get it in front of academics. There's a giveaway program that we have on the website and on the homepage where you can donate, and that money goes to people who can't afford the book. Like we said, the book we've been giving it out for free basically to places that they can't afford it or whatever, and it's an endless. This is just endless. I have brought a couple, it's just the pages of what we have, and you can download this online also on the homepage, which are basically the discussion groups. At our Daughters of Diana gathering, where Ruth first introduced the material, we would have these discussion groups, and we would talk about language. And yesterday with Gail Dine's presentation about how important that language format is, we wanted to offer up these it's a PDF you can download. We're also adding to it. If you got better questions you want to add to it, please, by all means. I'm going to pass these around just so you can have a look-see.
That little on that thing you need a microscope for, it's you can go and download the PDF off of the femaleerasure.com website, and you can have those questions.
Female erasure?
Female erasure.
So is it like ways to interact with somebody, like kind of prompts, things that you can
Right,
say?
like what is gender?
Oh, got it.
The basic part, and some of those comebacks that we were talking about yesterday. Some of the women I've talked with about, I asked them to write down 3 questions or so that you feel really strong on, so that when you get that, you just hate all men, don't you? Well, actually, no, can you define what a woman is? Redirect those questions back to them. So that's what we're doing. The other thing that I really need to mention, I don't know if we have any techies in here, or if you know of any techies, and some of you actually are doing this in different formats. We've been collecting, obviously the book itself has a bunch of resources that I have not been able to get up on the web. I had a woman that was helping me with the database. It's a Zotero database, and it's just cumbersome. I have not released it, and if anybody knows anybody that works with big databases and library books specifically and stuff, thank you. I'm passing this around also, so that if anybody wants to, who you are and what you're doing. I haven't had a chance to talk to all of you, and I really wanted to, because you're all doing really amazing stuff. Please feel free to leave me your contact information so that we can come back later on and we'll be able to.
Karen,
Yes.
what kind of database do you mean, like, and how big, how much information?
So, Zotero, right now it's in a Zotero, which is a bibliography that works for libraries specifically. And it started right right when I came onto the project. So it's videos, it's written word, it's audios, and it's set up in a library format. So, you know, the APA or the American Psychological Association might have it set up one way, or the Chicago, you know, writing system in different ways.
There's a lot of amazing writing and articles, and we want them not to be removed. And we want to have a place where these are archived.
Right.
That's the idea of
And actually
the female
today-
erasure resource.
Today, when I was talking to somebody else, I think that we're gonna set up a server.
Yeah.
I think that I'm coming back to the place, we're gonna set up our own server. Yeah.
So that when you come across something that should be able to be accessed and shared by others, I just know that the whole idea of it, like, just like the idea of an anthology, we are stronger together. We might
Right.
not agree on everything, but it's just like, we talked about, look at all the different organizations represented here, all the different interests here. To have, so the idea of, some overarching something that then is, a web, weaving a web of contacts and information so we can help each other and help, get information to one another more easily. So that's something that we're talking about, and I don't know what you think about that, but
I just mentioned to Elizabeth that, one of the things when we came, and I kept asking was like, okay, so what are we gonna do at the end of all of this? I have ideas for an app, a RadFem app. I have some URLs that I've purchased that are RadFems. In terms of and I don't want to repeat what other people are doing, but I'd like to somehow make it accessible for all of us that we could share. And so it requires some time, it requires some money, it requires some interest from women that want to be part of it. So if you or if you know somebody that it might be interested, we're definitely looking, we need help. I mean, I'm online 24/7 just trying to, and it's like way over my head. I'm constantly in. What I do is try to keep the conversation going in a straight line, and so by using that language that we use the frame around, where we're not attacking people, and we're opening people to, let's have a conversation about this.
it's kind of like water splashing on a windshield, right? It's like, well, I'm giving you this information I'm giving you actual data about how climate change is real, and you're going, but and it doesn't even penetrate the glass. So you can learn about how that works, and of course the challenge is, how do you get through the glass?
The Friday night after we left here, where we're staying, the woman said, you have to see this movie, you have to see this movie, and we're brain dead. I'm like, really?
This is Friday night.
I can't do anything else. I'm sitting on the couch where I'm sleeping, so I've got to wait for everybody. So I'm watching this movie, and it was phenomenally, it was directly connected to what we're doing in it, and the name is The Brainwashing of My Dad.
It's on my dad.
The brainwashing of my dad, and that, what they talked about,
The brainwashing of my dad. It's on Netflix.
So the idea being that they actually track from Nixon, the right-wing conservative, and how they framed, the Republicans framed, and one of the key things is the couple that Gail Dines pointed out was her points that she was saying about how you were supposed to come. The Republicans have been doing that exactly.
You're going to learn the tactics, and you have the people that orchestrated the think tanks talking about what they did.
Yeah.
It's like, this is really important. So then we're constantly being manipulated, okay? Sometimes we're being manipulated and we don't even know we're being taken. This is the whole thing about framing and why it's important to understand what Lakoff is trying to tell you. So you can make a decision about, am I going on this trip, or am I going to get my own ticket and go somewhere else, or take you where I want to go?
The brainwashing, that's not clear.
The
Brainwashing of my dad.
I found it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I watched it like a few years ago, because like my dad, he watches Fox News and listens to Rush Limbaugh and like all that. And so I told my mom about it. She was like, "Oh my God!" I was like,
It's exactly what happened.
But yeah, I wanted to bring up I don't know if anybody knows the name Frank Luntz, but he is the guy on the right who does these focus groups, and he comes up with these phrases, these really emotionally charged phrases like death tax.
They talk about him in the film.
Yeah, exactly.
They talk, so
We
what,
need a rad fem version of
Exactly.
this is what we're saying, this is what we're
That's
saying.
it.
Yes, we need to do focus groups. And,
Yes.
yeah,
This
get our own-
is it. So we would
yeah.
like to encourage you all to think about this issue and give us, as you talk to other women about this issue also, to have what you're talking about. How can we have a frame then that is not getting sucked into that thing? And our own responses so that they have to step into our world. Okay, so if we start talking about, trans women, or we talk about, or use even the word M to F, we are propagating something that isn't real. You cannot change your sex. You cannot change your biological sex. You can change your clothes, you can, all the rest of it. But you cannot change your sex. So the minute you use phrases, even the word woman-born woman is a frame for, it came out of trans.
Right.
So as much as we have used, exactly. So exactly. So these are because when you say woman-born woman, you're saying you can be a woman without being born female. It's a trans frame.
How do you feel about Tim?
Trans-identified male.
That's the
That's
one.
probably the best one.
That's the new one that's come out to the top, I think.
Exactly, or male to
And I like
trans
that
or.
it's Tim too, it's very clever.
Yeah, so I'm just trying to say that
Tim
look
sounds
at the language that you are actually using. You can start with yourself.
Being proactive instead of reactive,
Thank you. And it's really hard, but we have to learn this. It's actually imperative that we propagate our language for our reality instead of stepping into theirs and working in there. Because what Lakoff basically is saying, the minute you enter their frame, you've lost.
It's like the anti-abortion movement did that with the pro-life.
That's right. That's right. Right. What happens is that we're defending what, it's always like, oh, you're against, as opposed to what are we for?
Yes.
What are we for? And if you do about what you're for, it's like I'm here that and we're for this. It's like I don't have to be for everything,
This is not about our language, but there's a wonderful short video by one of the women involved in Me Too. She's an actress, and a trans activist confronted her.
Right.
And she said, "And what have you done for women? Are you working on abortion rights? Are you working on this? When you do that, come back."
That's exactly.
Brilliant.
Exactly.
Somebody
That's
remind me
what
her
we
name?
Yes.
One more question.
Well, I just want to say that I think it's really important that we get more numbers, because when it's a few women here, we're targeted, we're taken apart. But I know, and I'm one of the people who needs to speak up more. But I know it's hard for all of us. Like I can certainly lose my job because I work in academia, but to the extent we can, I do think the more we support each other, the harder it is for us to be taken down.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, so for those of you who don't know, I count all women who are murdered by men in the United States. So something that's very easy to do if you come across well, trans women are being murdered more than anybody, blah, 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 is just, and you can get one of my cards because it's got, my website, and you can always email me and I can send you a permanent link to my Google spreadsheet.
Where are your cards? Are they out there?
Yeah, they're upstairs, I'll get them. But, so what you can just do is just quietly do a link to my page or to my Google spreadsheet.
Yes.
And you don't even have to you
Oh,
don't
that's
even
great.
have to
Say
get involved or say anything, just
Right.
silently, just put it on there.
I
And
have
they're like,
that.
well, what's this? And they click on it, and when they start scrolling, and there's
It's
700 women on there right now from January 1st
Yep.
to June
Right.
6th.
Yep.
And, yes, we're more of the population, and it's, percentage of, but it's still,
Yeah.
it's so great.
Yes.
Maybe there's 27 trans people,
I think that's
women a year versus.
Thank you, and thank you for everything that each of you are doing. Even the fact that it bothers you, okay? Let's talk at the very, very basic level, because it means, it means you're awake. So keep yourself awake, keep joy in your life too, because it's fuel, we must do that as well. As while we're dealing with all this unbelievable crap. And let's find more and more ways to weave our web and support one another. And thank you so much.
Thank you.